Brittany sat up. Her young ears had grown accustomed to the muffled sobs in the room next to hers. Late at night, Mommy thought that Brittany was asleep, and late at night, she would be wide awake listening to her Mommy cry. Mommy cried a lot. Mommy said that when her and Brittany came here, things would be better. No more hospitals, no more lies, no more tears. While they haven't had to go to the hospital for a long time, Mommy still cried. And that was a lie. Mommy cries a lot. That wasn't what woke Brittany that night, though. No. Something thumped. Or bumped. Or whatever the sound was. Brittany wasn't sure, but she was certain that something was in the room with her that wasn't supposed to be. Mommy said that this was a safe place. Brittany didn't feel safe right now, though. The darkness around her seemed to enfold Brittany in a blanket of black for the purpose of, well, who's to know? Brittany had no clue. The only feeling that she got was that she should be very worried right now. Silence rang out like a constant playing of the highest notes she had heard in her 7 years of life. The silence was broken only by the breathy gasps of the central air puffing to life. There it was again, the thump-bump sound. Brittany drew her legs up to her chest and tucked the comforter around her neck. If there was something here, what could she do? Was it between her and the door? Maybe Brittany could dive from the bed and make mad dash to the door, swing the door open and run to Mommy. Mommy's stifled sobs died away some time ago. Brittany knew that she had fallen asleep. By the time that she could wake Mommy and get her to unlock the bedroom door, whatever this was could already be on her. Brittany wanted to blame Mommy for locking the bedroom door, but given what they had gone through, she couldn't. All blame lies with Daddy. The darkness had loosened its grip and Brittany could begin to see the outlines of her furniture. She took inventory of the shadows and their possibilities. She assumed what she saw was her dresser, drawing desk, a chair, the dollhouse, and Fluffy Bob, teetering on the very edge of the bed. Brittany wanted Fluffy Bob, but she dare not move from her huddle in the corner. Perhaps what was here couldn't see her, and Brittany didn't want to chance being found. The moonlight began to flow in the window, offering more to see than just black shapes. Most of Brittany's assumptions were confirmed, aside from one. There was nothing there, no monsters, no vampires, no Daddy, no worries. The central air shut off. Brittany was almost ready to fall back into dreams of Fluffy Bob and Candy, but something occurred to her. If the central air had turned off, why was there still a huffing sound? Thump, bump. This time, Brittany felt the bed shake the slightest bit. The sound was coming from the bed. Not the bed itself, but something beneath the bed. Some writhing, undulating horror was beneath her bed, waiting for the perfect moment to strike with teeth and claws, tentacles and jaws. It was growing impatient, but Brittany refused to give this thing any opportunity at her. Brittany tightened the hug on her knees and pulled the blanket further around her face. Fluffy Bob began to sway toward the edge, and Brittany froze. She wanted Fluffy Bob more than ever now. No, she needed Fluffy Bob. Fluffy Bob was the only sense of security that Brittany had left in the world, and without him, she would be adrift in a sea of madness with no anchor. Fluffy Bob could not fall. Brittany shivered at the idea of leaving her security blanket, but there was little choice. She allowed the blanket to drop from her shoulders as she slowly shifted her joints. She reached a hand forward and leaned into it. The mattress crunched under her weight. Damn! These plastic sheets! Her eyes darted back and forth, taking in her entire surroundings. Though she saw nothing, she still heard the low, labored breath of what was beneath her at that very moment. Brittany felt her eyes begin to moisten. She squeezed them shut and then opened them wide, trying her best to push back the tears that were coming. Brittany leaned into the next position and the bed groaned under the pressure. In the daylight hours, this trip wouldn't even require thought. She would simply jump over, grab Fluffy Bob, and be done. Now is another story. Now, Fluffy Bob was miles away, leaning farther to the edge and poised to plummet into the oblivion of uncertainty. Brittany was fully leaned on all fours now, achingly slowly slipping along her bed. She was so close now, mere inches away. Fluffy Bob's hand was stretched out to hers, begging for reprieve from his destined meeting with what lies beneath him. So close. Brittany could feel the felt of his fingers. Her arm fully extended, all she had to do was close her fingers around the plush hand, and Fluffy Bob would be safe. An immense mass of flesh jutted upward and slammed down on Fluffy Bob. Brittany yelped as she flung herself back to her corner. Now there was no sanctuary in the corner. What is there now knows where she is, and it also knows how afraid she has become. Brittany's tear-filled eyes dropped to Fluffy Bob. The massive claw that had him pinned pressed down onto the mattress. A shadow began to break the horizon of her bed as the labored breathing slowly swelled into a low, deepening growl. Brittany's lip began to quiver, and she tried so desperately to scream for Mommy, but the only noise that escaped her throat was a squelched gurgle. Two gleaming shimmers rose along with the shadow and caught the gaze of Brittany's horrified view. From the creature's eyes, Brittany could only feel malice, anger, and evil. This thing slowly leaned forward, completely overtaking the air above the bed. Its other limbs slowly slipped forward with the claw extending toward Brittany. Her tear-soaked eyes slipped down to the tip of the claw that inched toward her face. Brittany squeezed her eyes shut, afraid to see anymore, and at the same time fully aware of what was to come. A tear began to slip down her cheek, and Brittany stifled back a sob. She had learned long ago that no matter what they took, monsters would never hear her cry again. There was a jerk on the mattress. Brittany opened her eyes wide again, and the creature had backed away and was slipping back beneath the bed. No, not slipping. The clawed hand that had pressed down on Fluffy Bob now gripped at the comforter. Brittany's gaze shot to the two shimmering globes that once spelled malice and doom, but now only screamed in fear themselves. Another jerk downward, and this thing was yanked further into its place of origin. Brittany had the feeling that if it could have, it would have screamed in horror as it was suddenly jerked lower. Its arms flailed about wildly, gripping at the floor, at the dresser, anything that could give it some reprieve from whatever had captured the hunter. The comforter began to jerk downward, and Brittany crab-walked back to not follow. Whatever was taking this thing was not going to get her as well. The creature shot one last pleading and horrified glance before being angrily yanked beneath the beating bed. The room suddenly burst into a chaotic choir of agonized bellows. Brittany slapped her hands over her ears and planted herself firmly into the very deepest corner of her bed. Her small hands did nothing to hold back the unearthly horror of the unknown source of the screams. The sounds still oozed around her fingers, forced its way beyond her tensed palms, and slipped past her ear canals and planted roots deeply in her psyche. As the mournful, terrified roars suddenly slipped away, another sound came to prominence. A repetitive, lurching sound that resembled a guttural intake, as if long, molded dishwater was suddenly unstopped and is now draining away to nothingness. The painful bellows had died away, and soon the deep slurping crept to a stop. Silence blanketed the bedroom. Brittany sat on the bed, fully exposed, tears still running down her face. Her head swam with fear, anxiety, anger, madness, and yet slight curiosity. She quickly shot looks around the room, trying to make sense of what just happened. A click sounded. A familiar sounding click, and Brittany slowly turned her wide-open gaze to her closet to see the door slowly unlatch and creak open. From the black maw inside, two dingy yellow orbs suddenly flickered electronically to life. Inexplicably, her curiosity now had more control over her than her fear, and Brittany sat straight up to get a better view. With a clunk, a booted foot stepped out of the dark closet and sat down, followed by a more human form than the one that had just exited. Although Brittany could plainly see that there was nothing human about this thing. A ragged shirt hung from its large frame. What appeared to be a goggled respirator mask pressed to its face. From the respirator came a rhythmic wheezing as if someone were working hard to breathe. Behind the seams of the mask, a dark and uneven flesh glistened. The goggles seemed to be the glowing orbs that Brittany saw first. All of this fully enclosed beneath a tattered and sparingly scorched, hooded overcoat. In its left hand, her blanket, and in its right hand was Fluffy Bob, goofy smile and all. Slowly, it raised its hand in a manner to offer Fluffy Bob to Brittany. She flinched. There was not much else she could do. Her tense muscles refused to allow it. The thing pulled Fluffy Bob back as if not sure how to proceed. It slowly creaked down to one knee and stretched Fluffy Bob forward onto the bed, keeping its glowing eyes on Brittany. It then slowly fanned the comforter, placed it back onto the bed, and drug it over Brittany's body, covering her as she reached out and yanked Fluffy Bob to her chest. Finally able to comprehend what was now happening, Brittany's aching muscles began to relax. She couldn't quite put her finger on it, but Brittany actually felt safe in this moment. It turned back to the closet, and Brittany suddenly blurted out, "Thank you!" Its head cocked back and glanced around for a moment. It turned back to her and knelt down to her level. "You're supposed to say you're welcome, you know." It bobbed its head knowingly. "Do you have a name?" Brittany asked as she propped up on her elbows. It shook its head, looking down to the floor. "Okay," Brittany continued. "I'll call you Mr. Bright Eyes." Mr. Bright Eyes looked up quizzically. "I like it," Brittany replied. Mr. Bright Eyes stood, looked to his left hand, and sheepishly placed it on her forehead. He turned and lumbered back to the inky darkness of the closet, before slowly slipping into the black oblivion. Mr. Bright Eyes gave one final glance and raised his hand up to wave goodbye. "Good night, Mr. Bright Eyes," Brittany said. She laid her head and hugged Fluffy Bob tightly.